right. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're doing well. It's a pleasure to meet you if I haven't already met you. I'm Dr. Angelina Kaniz. I'm a department chair here at JCC and the coordinator for our Goodnight Scholars Preparation Program. I'm so excited to have all of you here, and I know a lot of you are really excited to learn about the Goodnight Scholars opportunity. We have been working closely with NC State for several years now, and this scholarship opportunity continues to be amazing and wonderful for a lot of our students who have gotten accepted to the program. If you didn't hear my original announcement, please use your chat feature to send me a direct message with your JCC email address. If for any reason you don't have a JCC email address, you can use a regular one, but this will ensure that I have you on my list for attendance purposes, as well as adding you to the listserv to get updates and information from this presentation and future information related to the Goodnight Scholars program. I'm so excited to have Ms. Din here from NC State University. She is our JCC Goodnight Scholars Ambassador. She is an amazing resource to all of you as you have questions or concerns or want to hear about her experience in the program. I appreciate her taking time to be with us, and I encourage you to, she'll have different points in her presentation where she, will ask for any questions. Remember, there are no silly questions. We understand that this is new to everyone, and this might be the first time you're hearing about this program. So please, don't hesitate to ask her any questions as she is going through. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Ms. Din.
Cool. Thank you so much for the awesome introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Mintu Din. I am in the class of 2023 at NC State University with a major in electrical engineering and a concentration in renewable electric energy systems. So right now we're going to be all talking about the Goodnight Scholars program. This is more than just a scholarship. It has fundamentally changed my life, and I'm really excited to tell you all a lot more about it. But before we go into that, if you could all take out your cell phones, because we want everyone to follow us on our social media as well as our podcast. We have an Instagram, a Twitter, a LinkedIn, a Facebook, and a podcast. All of these are really great resources to get to know more about the day-to-day lives of Goodnight Scholars. I will be featured in a podcast episode later on in April. So if you're listening by then, it'd be really cool if you did. So yeah, we have social media and a podcast. And now we're going to go into a little bit more about who we are. So the Goodnight Scholars program is a program that invests in students from low to middle income families in North Carolina that are majoring in STEM or STEM education. It also empowers Goodnight Scholars to pay it forward as transformative leaders at NC State, in North Carolina, and around the world. For me specifically, that means pursuing a concentration in electrical engineering, which is power systems that allows me to ensure the safety and efficiency of systems that power everyday facilities like schools, hospitals, many other aspects of life. And also, I regularly volunteer in my community to help those with housing insecurity. So now we're going to go into more about who we serve. There are several criteria, the first of which is the Goodnight Scholars program gives students $21,000 a year. This is also considered a full tuition scholarship. The second is that we are supporting low to middle income families. This is for students with families that have an adjusted gross income of up to $110,000 a year. If you have a certain situation or circumstance, such as you have a larger family, so you make higher than the adjusted gross income on the screen, then we encourage anyone to apply for a self-nomination form. This form doesn't hurt your chances of receiving an invitation for Goodnight Scholars. Instead, it explains your situation or your circumstance and allows people to see your situation in a more holistic approach. Third, we are exclusive to North Carolina residents. This also includes students under immigrant status, refugee status, and DACA status. We cater to students that are interested in majoring in STEM or STEM education. However, we do have students that are interested in fields outside of these. So we have many students that are pursuing minors that aren't STEM or STEM education. And we also have people double majoring. Like I know someone who is double majoring in business administration and biology. And finally, students must obtain an associate's degree from an NC Community College by fall of 2022. And it can be an Associate of Arts, Associates of Science, or Associates of Engineering. So that was a lot of information. So does anyone have any questions for me? Okay, we're going to move on, but if you have any questions, feel free to ask or put in the chat on the Zoom. But now we're going to talk a little bit more about what we offer. As I mentioned in the beginning, the Goodnight Scholars Program is so much more than a scholarship. There are many enriching opportunities that have allowed me to grow as an individual. The first of which is professional development. We have a variety of professional development events and opportunities. We have an event called Scholar to Scholar, where alumni can speak to Goodnight Scholars about their experiences, whether that is in the industry, doing research, or pursuing an academic route. We also have this program called Goodnight Fellows. This fellowship program allows people to pair up with Goodnight Scholars and talk about their experiences. I personally participated in it 2 years ago, and I was able to talk to someone that was an energy engineer, which is something that I'm personally interested in. And it was really great insight to learn more about that discipline itself. And we also have general events. We have something called Resume Jam, where Goodnight Scholars can get their resume reviewed by our directors. And we have chats where Goodnight Scholars can meet professionals in the field or at NC State. We also offer a lot of community service. One of our mottos in the Goodnight Scholars program is to pay it forward. And we definitely pay it forward by giving back to the community. For instance, every year, the Goodnight Scholars and Park Scholars at NC State team up together to organize a one-day event called Service Raleigh. This event teams up with organizations all across Raleigh, and locals can help out for one day, whether it's building a house, helping out with the local Boys and Girls Club. We have a lot of partners, and it's really a lot of fun. I participated in it last year, and I'm excited to do so again. And we also have smaller events. So I have volunteered with the local Science Olympiad in Raleigh, and I've helped run the competition, which I'm excited to do again this year. Next, we have class socials. So the way that the Goodnight Scholars program is coordinated is that we have students coming in by whether they're a transfer student or a student transferring from a community college to NC State, as well as traditional students, which are students that graduate high school and then will go straight to NC State. We categorize these students based on the year that they're intending to graduate. So for me, I'm in the class of 2023 as a traditional student. And these socials are really great ways to get to know that cohort of yours in a more friendship manner rather than just as colleagues. So for instance, I've gotten to go to the nearby park with some Goodnight Scholars. We got to go on the carousel, ride on boats, look at ducks. It was a really fun time. And now this weekend, I get to go to the hockey game with my class, and we get to cheer on the team while just bonding together as friends. We also have a lot of travel opportunities. These travel opportunities for Goodnight Scholars are either subsidized or provided for free. I'm just going to give a brief overview based on the pictures you see on the screen. So the first on the top left is the Goodnight Scholars trip to Boston. Students got to visit the MIT lab and also learn more about the culture of Boston. Then to the right of that is Trinidad and Tobago. That's where everyone's really colorful and they're in the background, there's a lot of trees. So students got to visit Trinidad and Tobago. They learned about the cocoa industry. They also learned about the environment and also the culture of Trinidad and Tobago. Below that is our annual Mountains to Coast trip. So students got to go all across North Carolina, and they also got to teach STEM activities to middle school students. And finally, to the left of that is the trip to Canada, where students got to experience some STEM activities in Canada, as well as exploring the culture. These trips are, once again, subsidized or provided for free, and they're also really great ways to get to know Goodnight Scholars that you probably would have never known before unless you attended the trip yourself. And finally, in our categories, we have enrichment grants. So enrichment grants are financial opportunities provided to Goodnight Scholars if they have an opportunity that is outside of the academic scope. So that's for things such as entrepreneurship opportunities, conferences, unpaid internships. I've known many Goodnight Scholars that have applied for enrichment grants and they were able to successfully complete their internship or research or go to the conference that they always wanted to go to but didn't have the financial means to. All Goodnight Scholars are encouraged to apply throughout the year, and it's a really great way to explore things outside of the academic realm. Now, before we go into more about the timeline and some things to look for when applying for Goodnight Scholars, does anyone have any questions? Okay, so we're gonna move on, but once again, if you have any questions, feel free to add it into the chat and I'll definitely get back to you with that regard. Oh, we have a question here. Oh, okay. Okay, cool. Thanks for the comment. Yeah, it's a really cool program. I've always really enjoyed my time and really hope that you are all interested in applying. So now we're gonna dive into the brief application timeline. So if you want more information on that, you can visit the website on the bottom right, goodnight.ncsu.edu. It really starts with today. You just heard this presentation. You think that, wow, this sounds really cool. I want to see if NC State and the Goodnight Scholars Program is a good fit. So you should do some more research on it. The second is on February 15th. That is when the general NC State application is due. That must be turned in. And also that is when the Goodnight Scholar self-nomination form opens. Once again, I briefly mentioned it in a previous slide. If you have an extenuating circumstance, so you feel like your current financial situation is not fitting with the adjusted gross income of $110,000, you can definitely self-nominate yourself to see if you can get an invite. It doesn't guarantee anything. However, it doesn't hurt your opportunities. I know Goodnight Scholars who self-nominated and they're Goodnight Scholars today. So once again, if you have an extenuating circumstance, definitely consider applying if you feel like you have something to explain yourself more holistically. Then in mid-March, that is when invitations are sent to apply for the Goodnight Scholars Program. And on this brief timeline on March 31st, that is when the Goodnight Scholars Program application is due. So once again, if you have any other pressing concerns, you can definitely ask me at the end of the presentation. And if you want more information, then visit our website, goodnight.ncsu.edu. So now we're going to talk into more about how to make yourself more competitive. There are 3 general steps, the first of which is to prioritize classes and activities that actively challenge you. We encourage students to pursue classes that align with their interests in STEM or STEM education. I know that when I was in high school, I took a class on electrical engineering to see if that was something I wanted to pursue. And fortunately, it helped me learn a lot more about the field itself, and I'm an electrical engineering major today. So that class definitely helped me personally. The second is engaging in career exploration. So that can be either Googling your major or your intended interests, doing interviews with professionals, shadowing, internships, etc. In my personal experience, I got to talk to a teacher who was a former electrical engineer and talk about his own experiences before I decided to pursue it on my own. And finally, we encourage all students to get involved on campus, whether through service or leadership. Once again, one of our mottos is pay it forward, and getting involved on campus and in your community is a really great way to follow and align yourself with that motto. So now we're going to talk a little bit about some resources for your application process. This will be emailed to you by the advisor here today, later on, the first of which are admissions recommendations for competitive applicants. This is a resource provided by NC State University on what classes to take if you're interested in transferring from your community college to NC State. The second is how to write a winning scholarship essay. This is written by our current director on tips to write a successful essay. And finally, written by our former director, it is successful scholarship interviews starts with 2 words. So if you want some interview prep, this is a really great article to read. So once again, these will be sent later on in an email after this presentation. So yeah, we're almost done, but before we finish off, does anyone have any questions? Okay, well, thank you so much for listening to me talk about the Goodnight Scholars Program. Once again, follow us on our social media. We have an Instagram, a Twitter, a LinkedIn, a Facebook. I follow them, so you definitely should too. We also have a podcast you can listen to. So once again, you can visit the website. And I do see a question in the chat, so I'm going to answer it. How was my application process? My application process definitely took a lot of time. I definitely asked people for advice on the essays that I had to complete. So I encourage everyone who is interested to apply for an invite. And then if they do get an invitation to go through, definitely take a lot of time to think about your own interests, your own passions in order to go through that. Then after the application that was written and I turned that in, I got to receive an invitation to do the finalist interview day. So mine was in person and I got to go and interview and talk about myself and my interests and why I want to do electrical engineering. So I guess they reviewed me and they said, yeah, welcome to the Goodnight Scholars Program. So it definitely was a lot for me, but it was well worth it. And it really actively challenged myself, which I really enjoyed when I was applying for the Goodnight Scholars Program. Hopefully that answers your question. But yeah, thank you again. If you have any more questions, feel free to stay on. Thank you for listening. And I hope you all have a great day.
So I'm gonna actually, before we wrap up, I want to touch on some things from the JCC perspective. Thank you so much,
Yes,
Ms. Din. I really appreciate you
no
and your
problem.
presentation. This was really awesome and a lot of valuable information. So for those of you that maybe came on midway through, I'm Dr. Kaniz. I'm a department chair at JCC, and I assist with the Goodnight Scholars Preparation Workshop Program. So, what exactly is that? Well, we understand that all of this information you were given today probably felt like a lot, and there's so many different steps, and we truly want to support you every single step of the way. We also understand that for a lot of you, this might be your first time pursuing this type of opportunity, and we want to make sure that you know how to successfully navigate that. So, just a few reminders. Again, Miss Din hit on these, but just to kind of, I guess, summarize and make sure you heard specific deadlines. If this sounds like an opportunity that is of interest to you, then there are two things you certainly want to do. You want to make sure that you contact me so that I have you on my radar. And if you haven't already directly chatted me through the Zoom chat, you want to provide your JCC email. That's going to ensure that I'm able to contact you and send you all the resources that Ms. Din provides to me. So that's the very first thing you want to do. The second thing you want to do is review the North Carolina State University Goodnight Scholars webpage. They have an FAQ section, and they also have information for transfer students. It's important that you all understand there are two ways to apply to Goodnight Scholars. There is the traditional pathway and the transfer pathway. We are supporting you all, and we are referring to all the logistics regarding the transfer route. This means that you, in order to go for the Goodnight Scholars program, you do have to complete your associate's degree, and that's either an associate's in arts, associate's in science, or associate's in engineering. Now, there may be some of you that are on this call that are interested in pursuing this opportunity, but you're not going to be done with your degree until maybe 2 years from now. That's fine. That's great. You're thinking ahead. But as far as the dates and the application process, you would actually pursue this opportunity and submit your application and all of the necessary documents if you are going to graduate this semester, and you're going to transfer or intend to transfer to NC State in the fall. So the application process and the pursuing of this program begins when you're going to be getting ready to actually go and transfer. So I want to make sure that's clear. So once you've reviewed the website and you've looked at the different dates and you've decided, yep, I'm definitely interested, Ms. Din mentioned that the general application for NC State is due on February 15th. It is critical that on that application you indicate that you're interested in a STEM or STEM ed major. Now, if the major that you're interested in pursuing, you're not quite sure if it's considered STEM or STEM ed, there is a list of all the approved majors on the Goodnight Scholars webpage. So you're going to want to take a glance at that and make sure that the one that you're thinking about intending to major in is actually on that list, because that's what will make you eligible to pursue this opportunity. Now, there have been some semesters where we have students that do everything that we tell them to do, and for whatever reason, their application goes under the radar and they don't receive their Goodnight Scholars invitation, even though they indicated a STEM or STEM ed major. That's when contacting me or one of your instructors. I know a lot of our engineering instructors, our science and math instructors are very familiar with who to get you into contact with. But you'll want to contact us so that we can help advocate for you and figure out maybe what happened. It might be that you weren't eligible and we can figure out why, or it might be again that your application just kind of went under the radar and they accidentally didn't give you an invitation, and we can easily get that information sent to you. you. I appreciate Miss Dan. She just put in the chat the list of majors. So, as you're kind of thinking about this, take a look at that link to see if the major you're interested in pursuing is on there. So that will be your next step. Again, February 15th is right around the corner. You have about, I think, 2.5 weeks. So that's really where you want to focus your main attention. For all of our students that receive an invitation to pursue this opportunity, what will happen is that invitation is going to include essays that you have to complete. So there's an application with essays. We want to assist you all in writing your essays for pursuing the program, and that's when you'll enter our preparedness workshop program. Our first workshop is you'll work with a team of English and communications faculty where they'll walk you through your essays and critique and let you know how you're doing or give you guidance, or they're just a resource for you to utilize as you complete that portion of the process. After that, we have other workshops that are going to focus on communication and interview skills. We do an actual mock interview with you all so that you can kind of experience what it's like being in an interview. And we also talk about highlighting your skills. One thing that the Goodnight Scholars Program has told us at JCC is that they're not looking for just smart students. There are hundreds of smart students that, maintain their academics throughout the state. That isn't enough. What they're looking for is a well-rounded student that is able to contribute and bring something to the program. So this really gets you thinking about what is it that you bring to the program? What is your experience? And I love the Goodnight Scholars webpage. They actually have profiles on some of the students. They do these little like news postings in their profiles of the students that are in the program and interesting facts about them. So that's another resource that you can use as you go along this process to see what have others said, and what type of students does Goodnight seem to be inviting into their program, and how does that relate to me, and what do I bring to the actual program. So those are the type of workshops we'll have and support you along the way. Again, we've had several JCC students go through our workshop, get an invitation to Goodnights, and receive the scholarship. So super, super exciting. Somebody asked in the chat, how big is the group of Goodnight Scholars group? Previously, there was a cohort for transfer students of 25, and we're really excited because they've been able to expand that for this upcoming year, and we'll be accepting 50. So it will be a cohort of 50. There is not a designated number for each community college or any college. So in North Carolina, it's not that, oh, we're going to select 5 from JCC. It's literally whoever is great, competitive, and who they want to invite. But it is a total of 50 transfer students across the state. I see another question that had mentioned about this is my second semester. Is it too early to submit the application? I believe I've already addressed that. Again, you want to make sure that you're going to be attending in the fall. Then that's when you'll complete this process. There's one last thing I'd like to hit on. Some of you may be familiar with the C3 program. The C3 program is part of our Agree to Degree dual admissions program. I'm actually the coordinator of that. So if you have any C3 related questions, feel free to ask. But I do want to make sure that anybody that's familiar with that program, it's really amazing because you can be in C3 and you can also become a Goodnight Scholars. And we've had students where, they've been in both of those different programs. So really amazing. There's some, financial scholarship opportunities and just a lot of great things to pursue. So I just want to make sure it's clear if you're in the C3 program, you would still be eligible to pursue the Goodnight Scholars program. That's all the information that I can think of that I want to share, kind of the big takeaways. Again, I know this was a lot of information. This session is recorded, so I will be sending out the recording to you all. That way, if you want to rewatch and rewind and all that good stuff or access this information later, you'll be able to do so. Ms. Din is also going to share her resources with me, and I will send that all to you in an email as well. But before I wrap up, are there any other questions? All the questions you guys have been asking are excellent. They're really, really great. Any questions or do we need to clarify on anything? Yeah, awesome. So when were the invitations again? So general application, Miss Din, I'm gonna have you help me out. I know general applications due the 15th, and then invitations will go out.
It's mid-March, so we don't have a confirmed date yet.
Let me see. I think I have it. Give me 1 second. I'll be happy to pull it up for y'all. Give me 1 second because I was just looking at it yesterday. Give me one moment. Of course, I say that, and now I don't seem to be able to access it on my computer. Let's see. Don't see it here. Let's take a look at the NC State website for Goodnight Scholars. I know that they have a calendar that's on their site, and there's actually two invitation periods that they highlight. There is a period where the program is sending out the invitations, and then there's the self nomination period. So, if you recall, I mentioned that sometimes, for whatever reason, your application might not get flagged and you don't receive an invitation. There's a specific period of time where you are able to then self nominate and say, hey, I think my application was overlooked. I'm interested in this program. And then they'll do a more thorough um, review. All right. So let's see. I'm here on the Goodnight Scholars webpage. I'm looking at the apply tab and underneath the transfer. And if you scroll down, you'll see the different sections that they have. The self-nomination form is actually going to be available from February 15th and will close on March 5th. So February 15th to March 5th. And then the application for Goodnight Scholars is due at the end of March, and then your interview day is in April. So I would say you'll probably hear from the Goodnight Scholars program if you receive an invitation, probably like Ms. Din said, mid-March. If you're interested in self-nominating, you can do that from February 15th to March 5th. The second question I got was, I'm graduating this summer. Will this be okay? So by definition, on the to be considered to receive an invitation to apply, you must obtain your associate's degree, again, an AA, AS, or AE, by fall 2021. So if you are graduating in the summer, then you are good because you will have obtained your degree by fall of 2021. Let's see. Is the C3 application entry time closed? This was a direct message. Great question. The C3 application is currently open. You can access this information by going to the johnstoncc.edu webpage. In the search bar, all you got to do is type in dual admission, and the very first link that comes up will take you to our dual admission webpage where you can access all our different partner schools. There is a tab for NC State where it gives you all the C3 information as well as the direct links to apply to the program. Awesome. I believe that's all of our questions. Any others? These are all excellent. All right. As you're getting ready to log off, please make sure I have your contact information. I only need your email address. In the chat, you can send it to me directly so that way I can share all of our resources and future information with you. Thank you so much for taking out time today to be with us. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Me and Miss Din will stay on for a few minutes after if anybody wants to talk to us privately. Have a great day. Thank you.